Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Digging Deeper moment number 168. We are so glad that you've joined us. If you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please remember to do so before leaving us tonight. This will help us spread messages like this one to others. Thank you very much. We've been looking at the 10 ways that Genesis chapter 1, that is, the creation account found there, is interpreted. So far, we've looked at 8 of them, and these 8 have at least one thing in common. They all assume an old universe, around 13.8 billion years. The final 2 ways Genesis 1 is interpreted, however, do not assume an old earth. Rather, they assume a young earth, around 6 to 10,000 years. The first of the 2, the 9th way Genesis 1 is interpreted, is called the literal day theory. This theory takes the 7 days of Genesis 1 as 7 literal 24-hour days, which means that God created the universe in 6 days and rested on the 7th, as Genesis 1:5 says, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, so the evening and the morning were the first day. The literal day theory establishes the age of the earth by counting the years recorded in the Bible's genealogies and its historical references. This theory assumes that there is a God. It assumes theism over naturalism. It assumes a young universe rather than old, that Genesis 1 is prose, that means statements, rather than poetry, meaning symbolic, that creation was instantaneous rather than gradual, that the universe was designed and created by God without the use of macroevolution, and that we get information through science and Scripture. But what is most important to this view is that the Scripture trumps science. And finally, that objective truth exists. A 10th way that Genesis 1 is interpreted is the appearance of age theory. This theory holds that the universe was recently created, or it's young, but has an appearance of age. Now, there are different options or nuances of this nature, of this type of theory, and so we need to be careful not to group them all together. Also remember that this study is a general look at these 10 views and that there are multiple views of each of these views, and we just covered the general basic idea of each one of them. But basically, however, the appearance of age theory postulates that the universe and the earth are young, but they look old. This theory assumes theism, that there is a God, a young earth, that Genesis 1 is prose, that creation was sudden, that it was designed, and that we get information through science and Scripture. But it too also believes that Scripture trumps science. And finally, it assumes that objective truth exists. Now, having given a basic understanding of these 10 ways that Genesis 1 is interpreted and the 7 assumptions associated with them, we can now compare them by creating a chart which will help us see where the real differences lie. Jonathan has put up for us here on the screen that table. Now, first of all, we see that all 10 theories agree more than they disagree. Let me say that again. We see that all 10 theories actually agree together more than they disagree. They all agree on 4 of the 7 assumptions that we've looked at. That there is a God, theism, that the universe was designed by God, that we can use both science and Scripture to discover truth about the creation of the universe, objective truth exists, and none of them hold to a purely naturalistic view, that is, that there's no God and that the universe is a closed system. And finally, none of them believe that the universe is the result of a cosmic accident. That's a lot of agreement. Now, where these 10 views disagree is in their assumptions about the age of the universe. 8 of these views hold to an old universe and only 2 of them to a young universe. 7 of these views believe that Genesis 1 is poetry. 3 believe it's prose, so we have 7 that believe it's symbolic, 3 that believe it's straight narrative. And finally, 7 believe that creation was incremental. That's what we defined as uniformitarianism, that things happen at a continual rate that exists today. And 3 believe that creation was sudden. So looking at this chart, we see that we agree on more than we disagree, and I think we should build on this. No matter which view we take or somebody else takes, we shouldn't see those that hold a different view as the enemy, because they're not. Another thing that this chart reveals is that the assumption one holds about the age of the universe seems to heavily influence how we look at the genre of Genesis 1. I say this because all old universe proponents that we've looked at, all 8 of them, take Genesis 1 as poetry. This is no accident. And the only exception to this is the gap theory, which is kind of an anomaly view anyway. And so it would seem to me that when it comes to the view about the genre of Genesis 1, we may be coming into the subject with mud on our feet. Therefore, I'm going to do some further study, and I'm going to get back to you at a later date. Now, one final comment that I'd like to make today is that the difference in these 10 theories seems to boil down to the age of the universe, the kind of literature Genesis 1 employs, and whether or not creation was sudden or incremental. And that's where we'll pick it up next week. If this lesson has helped you, please share it with a friend, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or check out our Sunday morning live podcast on either Apple or Spotify. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. It will help us greatly. Thanks. I hope to see you next week.